All right, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. What I'm going to talk to you about today is drawing in perspective. And I hope the lighting is okay. It's pretty much the best I can get at the moment, but you should be able to see it just fine. I'm looking at my hands. It seems like we'll still be able to see what gets drawn on the paper really well. But anyway, when it comes to architecture, you may be tasked with producing an artistic rendering of an architectural project. Okay, and when that happens, usually the artist, whoever that is, would use what we call perspective. They would either use 1 point, 2 point, or 3 point perspective, depending on the drawing. And with that, they would create sort of a three-dimensional pencil, pen, paint, watercolor type of drawing. And also, of course, what's coming into much wider use is the use of computers in doing this. So software is another way of creating these renderings as well, very almost photorealistic renderings. But to draw in perspective, first you need to just kind of make note of the fact that, as you watch this and as you practice a little bit with it, it does take a lot of practice. It's not going to happen overnight. Okay, so it does take a lot of practice. And the first thing you want to do with your paper, pencil, is draw a horizon line. And this is, kind of an eye level line that, kind of like if you were standing on a beach looking over the ocean, then you would get that horizon line. And what we'll start with is 1 point perspective. So 1 point perspective, you're going to have one dot, which is called your vanishing point. Okay, one dot's called your vanishing point. And that is basically where your axes, your three-dimensional axes. Now, of course, we always have an X and we have a Y axes. Okay, that's 2 dimensions. Now, the third dimension, when it comes to drawing on paper with perspective, you have that third dimension that goes like that, and that is your Z. Okay, so that's the vanishing line, the lines that vanish into this vanishing point. Okay, so to do that, we kind of use this dot to aim at. Of course, you can use a ruler if you want to draw, a couple of lines down to the vanishing point. Okay, you can come up with something like that. All right, now what we need to do with this vanishing point is we need to create some sort of a shape. We're just going to kind of work with a cube shape. Okay, so we've got our horizontal lines for the cube, and then of course we've got our vertical lines, which just go straight up vertically on the piece of paper. Okay, and we got the front panel of this cube, and let's see, then we got the back portion of the cube. This line comes back to join the back portion of the cube. Okay, and that line just kind of becomes part of the shape. All right, and so does this one. And now we can start erasing lines, and you'll start to kind of see the shape come in to view. So we have sort of a flat cube, slab, whatever you want to call it there. Sorry about the table shaking. And of course, another thing that kind of adds or enhances these types of drawings is understanding your light and where your light comes from. So let's say our light comes from up here and shines down this way. Well, then we would, of course, darken in the shaded sides of the shape, and the bottom would get the most shade. That's going to be the darkest. And you can use a combination of shading and hatching, or just one or the other, and to get that shaded, because that will be relatively in shadow with maybe a little reflection coming up off the ground. And you can get this as detailed as you want, or just kind of primitive, such as I'm doing right here. And I'm taking this side and this corner that's furthest away from the light source, kind of giving it a bit of a darker hue. So I'm kind of creating a gradient, if you will. Okay, now this part here, this front part would probably be not quite as dark. It would probably be a little bit lighter, because it's not so far away. It's only like a 90-degree difference between the point of light in this and toward the bottom is, you know, more like 180 degrees. So it probably wouldn't be as dark. Okay, so that would be 1 point perspective. Let's add another point to that and get a 2 point perspective. Okay, so we're going to draw a couple of lines here that kind of represent the dimensions vanishing into that point. And then we'll draw a couple more lines right here. Now, typically when you're actually drawing an actual, drawing using these perspectives, you wouldn't really draw all these lines. You might draw a few just to kind of get the hang of where everything is. But typically, like right now, I'm just drawing them mainly because of the lesson itself. And again, you'll get used to kind of drawing these without these guidelines. Okay, so there is 2 point perspective cube. Okay, and erase some lines so you kind of start to see that come into play. Okay, so now you should be able to kind of decipher what's going on. Okay, so same thing here, shade from the light, lighter shade, much darker shade down here. Okay, and again, you can use cross hatching or gradient shading, whichever you deem would be the best for your purpose. Okay, so there is 2 point perspective. Now there's also what we call a 3 point perspective as well. 3 point perspective will affect the vertical lines, such as these lines right here that you see on the shape. And let's say I put a dot right here. This will be my 3rd point perspective. And let's see, let's kind of sketch a couple more lines right across here. Make this shape much lower. Oops, I don't want to make it that far out. Okay, so here we kind of have to aim this dot so that our verticals won't be quite vertical. They'll be kind of slanted to the side based on this point, and then this one would actually be kind of slanted backwards or almost straight. Okay, and then come in again with our top lines that kind of go back to the vanishing point. And three point perspective is kind of odd. You don't see it used very often. A lot of the drawings that you'll see are typically 2 point perspective until you really get into computer software and start using computer software. And then you'll see more of the 3 point perspective. 3 point perspective is really kind of difficult to visualize, even difficult to get some things to really fit into 3 point perspective as it should. But there you have it. Your 1, 2, and 3 point perspective. Okay, now this is just the concept. Okay, we'll talk more about actually drawing things in 3 point or 1 point or 2 point perspective. Okay, so go ahead and practice this, and you may even want to add some additional shapes. Like we could create a pyramid, kind of use the triangle shape. All right, so each side of the pyramid, and then the front of the pyramid, like so. And then we can erase the lines inside of it, and even some of the lines on the outside as well. And you can start to see this come together. Okay, so now we've got a pyramid. And it too, light coming from here, means that this side would be in shadow. Okay, and you can do that however you wish, to whatever degree that you wish. And there you go. And you can even add ground shadow to this as well. Let's see. Probably look something like that. And with shadow this way, this of course, the shadow would pretty much be solid. It wouldn't be like some of my, I'll have like one end of it, the end that's furthest away from the light will be darker, kind of like I'm doing right now. Okay, and then the shadow itself will be very consistent. The shadow on the ground. Okay, so hopefully you can kind of see things coming together out of that. And there you go. 1 point, 2 point, and 3 point perspective.